Hi, I'm Liam Semler from the University of Sydney.
Hi, I'm Jill Woods and I'm from Birkbeck University of London. So we're going to talk today about the new Shakespeare and Pedagogy Cambridge Elements series. So let's kick things off by thinking about what the aims and scope of this series are.
This is a really exciting time for education. We all know that education is changing dramatically, whether it's at school or at university. Lots of older trends in education transforming, changing, or falling away. And it's the same with Shakespeare. Shakespeare is going through a very exciting moment at this time, where we're bringing to bear on Shakespeare numerous contemporary issues and topics that we find particularly significant. They might be to do with race or gender and identity, or eco-criticism and the climate, a whole range of different topics which are coming to bear on Shakespeare. But the main thing that we can see is that Shakespeare and pedagogy are both highly live topics. And we want to really affirm Shakespeare and pedagogy as a field of its own, a field worth exploring, worth doing solid research in, and a field where we want to build up an increasing amount of scholarship that's accessible to readers right across the sector and around the world. Jill, perhaps you could tell us something about what's in the pipeline already and some of the ideas that we've got lined up for the Cambridge Elements Shakespeare and Pedagogy series.
Sure, so we've got a number of different exciting elements in the pipeline at the moment. So a number of them actually cluster around the theme of digital learning, as we might expect at this moment and given the nature of our platform. So we have, for example, something on Shakespeare and virtual reality, one on podcasts and gender. And these are obviously going to be really important parts of the series. And we're expecting that, given what's happened with COVID-19 and the pandemic and teachers being really forced to work online in new ways, we're expecting probably more proposals to do with digital learning. So they might include things like discussion about how we engage students as active learners in this kind of digital format. How do we effectively create synchronous and asynchronous learning experiences? How do we engage with a very kind of diverse student body in this online format, given that people have very unequal access to digital technologies? In addition to that, we also have elements that are focusing on things like embodied Shakespeare, on critical pedagogies and active learning. We have one piece that's really looking at sort of cutting edge theatre history and putting that in conversation with an inclusive classroom. So there's a whole wealth of different topics that we've got forthcoming. One really key one that we're planning at the moment is to do with developing racial literacy in Shakespeare courses, and that's going to be an essential part of this series, and we would expect to get more proposals on that kind of issue. As things develop, we would love to see things on, for example, key themes that emerge within Shakespeare studies at the moment. So an important one might be, for example, disability studies, which has obviously been a burgeoning field within Shakespeare studies more recently. So it would be really exciting to see a piece that put that kind of discussion of disability studies within Shakespeare texts in conversation with questions about how we deal with issues of ableism and disability in the Shakespeare classroom. We're also keen to speak to a global audience, so it would be wonderful to hear people thinking about Shakespeare beyond the Anglophone world. Obviously, we're interested in issues of performance, all the big topics that come up within the field of Shakespeare studies, we would love to see thought about from a pedagogical angle too.
Yeah, I think it's particularly important that the authors for the series are aware that they're speaking to a global audience, and also that the educational sector is big and broad and it's diverse. And so as they speak about teaching Shakespeare, it's good to be alert to the idea that you might be speaking to educators who work with young children or work with students at high school or work with academics or students at university and colleges. So we really want these elements to be dealing with topics in detailed and sophisticated ways, but to be accessible and to be to have a connection to a practical world of teaching, even if their emphasis might be particularly theoretical. Nonetheless, we're very keen for the elements in the series to be highly accessible to readers right across the educational spectrum.
Great. So maybe we could have a think now about why authors should publish in this series and what the particular benefits are to them.
The Cambridge Elements series is a really exciting new platform. It's particularly exciting for authors who want to deliver cutting-edge research in their field, research that requires greater length than they might have for a regular chapter or article of, say, 5,000 or 8,000 words. They want to write more than that, but they don't want to go the full distance of writing a 70,000 or 80,000 word monograph. So the Elements platform is brilliant for solid, detailed research pieces that sit within the 20,000 to 30,000 word mark. Not only that, since this is a digital first publication, it means that these research pieces can partake of the affordances that the platform has. Particularly, it means that a research work can be updated by the author. It means that there are many ways that we can embed video or have hyperlinks or have various downloadable possibilities. And so it's exciting for authors to not only think about what's new and what's powerful and important in Shakespeare education, but also to think, what would this new platform offer for the way we present our ideas? And so that opens up quite a vista to play with and think about as an author. Also, another great benefit is that there's a quick turnaround time between submitting a proposal. The proposals are very straightforward. We're very keen to see succinct, clear detail about the structure of the element that someone is proposing and the content that they're interested in addressing. We can quickly turn around proposals, give feedback on proposals, and the whole process towards publication can be quite speedy compared with a journal publication or a monograph. Yep.
I agree. I think it's a really wonderful opportunity for people to think critically and evaluatively about their teaching. So this really is a space where people can move beyond those sort of very short pieces where people sort of just talk about the content of their teaching to much more reflective and exploratory pieces where people consider what it means to be teaching in the way that they do, to be teaching the kinds of things that they teach. So it allows it, as Liam said, to become a proper research-led piece. It's also worth noting that this is a peer-reviewed series, so that means authors get all the benefits of that very rigorous system. And as a Cambridge element, your work would sit within the Cambridge core platform, which means that it's sitting alongside leading pieces of Shakespearean research in things like Shakespeare Survey.
So what should authors do? How do we get in touch with you?
So authors should email either me or Liam, or ideally both of us. You'll find our contact details on the website. So when you email us, it would be great if you could give us a brief indication of who you are, so whereabouts you work, what previous experience you have in teaching and Shakespeare studies. And in addition to that, obviously, we'd like a sense of what your idea is. So we want to know what you would like to work on in an element. Once we have an email from you, we can work with you a little bit on a proposal if we think that it sounds like a good idea. And then at that point, we're off to the races with the project. That brings us to the last question about why we think Shakespeare and Pedagogy lends itself to a new Elements series, and what it is about the Elements format that appeals to us.
The Shakespeare and Pedagogy series is an ideal fit with the Cambridge Elements platform, because the more we look at the way pedagogy is changing, particularly with the digital revolution that we're all experiencing, the more we know that publishing research into teaching and learning, when it's published online, forces us to think more about online possibilities and audience and connectedness. And so it's very exciting to be able to have a platform like Cambridge Elements, which will connect us to a whole range of other scholarship produced and published by Cambridge, but also put us into that online space where we can connect with numerous tools and possibilities that are available online.
Yeah, and I think it's probably also worth noting that as well as being a digital first publication, these elements come with a print on demand feature, so that authors really get the best of both worlds with that. So you sort of get to sit within a series on the Cambridge core platform, but it's also possible for readers to buy affordable print editions of individual elements as well. So it's doing really great work in both venues.
If you're an academic who's taught in Shakespeare studies for a long time and you perhaps haven't published in the area of education or pedagogy, it might be something to reflect on and have a think about, because although you may not have seen it as an area of research of your own, you might actually have an enormous wealth of experience and knowledge from a career in teaching Shakespeare. And it can be a wonderful thing to reflect back on what you've done in the space of Shakespeare and pedagogy, and to have a think about how those ideas could be crafted into an extended piece for this series.
Yeah, and equally, it's a great space for emerging scholars as well, particularly, I suppose, people who have recently done their teacher training. So they've got an immediate familiarity with pedagogical literature and are also developing their own research fields. This is a really exciting opportunity to put those two things together. So one of the things that we're using this series for is to make a space for rigorous and meaningful experimentation, and that includes in the way the authorship model will work within the series. So we're absolutely looking for people who want to write singly authored pieces, but we're also really interested in people who want to do collaborative work. We recognise that good teaching takes lots of different forms, and so actually we also see that our elements maybe need to take different shapes in order to address that fact. So for example, we've already commissioned people who are working on dual authored pieces, but we're also commissioning more multivocal pieces as well, where the element might work more like a sort of mini collection, but in a much more coherent and integrated way than you would find in maybe the sort of standard scholarly collection. But the importance is that there's an opportunity to think collaboratively. So you might want to think about working with people at different institutions, people who are working in different educational environments, people working at different sectors. So for example, conversations between high school teachers and people working in universities, or people working in different countries. There are a whole range of different options, and we think that this format really gives scope for people to undertake interesting experimentation that has a real pedagogical purpose behind it.
So please get in touch. There's no reason not to. Get in touch with us. Let us know your ideas about elements for Shakespeare and pedagogy. We're extremely keen to receive proposals from everybody, regardless of where you're working around the world or what aspect of the educational sector you're in. Send us your ideas and we'd love to work with you on them.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to reading your proposals and hopefully to working with you in the future.